Welcome to Wealth Talks, where we talk about solutions, money, and other things that create wealth in your life. We're here again behind the mic, John, and we have a guest with us today.
That's right. Ben McFie, welcome. This is my brother. And
yes, we're so glad you're here today, Ben, because you've been studying something that is really fascinating, and it explains a lot of what happens with people's finances and why they end up in a position that they never thought they would be in. And so go ahead and tell us a little bit about what you've been studying.
Well, thank you. It's nice to be back on Wealth Talks again. The information that I came across the other day and was looking into is two different types of thinking that humans do. It's called level one thinking and level two thinking. And level one thinking is very immediate, very intuitive, you might say, and very emotional.
Very American, because we like to do
this
it.
Is
really,
true. This is true. So level one thinking really dominates in the society because it's the first level of thinking that most people will use. And level one thinking looks at everything around us and quickly tries to assimilate it into some type of order so that we can assess a threat or we can assess an opportunity or make quick decisions like that.
Kind of spontaneous thinking.
Exactly. And based almost purely on emotion.
Yes.
many people in the American culture today pride themselves on quick thinking, quick decisions.
Emotional decisions.
Emotional decisions.
And then level two thinking comes after that, which is logical thinking, and where we are looking for facts, where we're making decisions mostly based on logic.
You know, Ben, this makes me think of when we talked to that BLM manager here. He had a Malamute dog, and he said the difference between our German Shepherds and his Malamute would be jumping off the cliff and saying, oops, there was a cliff there, and our German Shepherd would have run up to it and evaluated a different way to get down.
Yes, brilliant. Brilliant. So the new Malinois dogs they're using in law enforcement, they like them because of their drive and their instant decision-making ability. But the fact is that when it comes to longevity, if there's a cliff up there, the German Shepherd is probably going to last a little bit longer because a German Shepherd would be more of a level two thinker. So level two thinking is used either to back up level one decisions or to challenge those level one decisions that we've made. So here's an example that I read about that's really fascinating. If a ball and a bat cost $1.10, and a bat cost $1 more than the ball, how much does the ball cost? So together, the ball and the bat cost $1.10. Just remember that the bat cost $1 more than the ball, and you should be able to quickly discover how much the ball costs.
Most people would say 10 cents, right? That's the quick decision.
Most people I asked immediately turned around and said 10 cents, of course. But if you look at this a little bit closer and go into level two thinking about it,
German Shepherd thinking.
yes, there you go. Then you realize that if the bat cost $1 more than the ball and the ball cost 10 cents, then the bat would be $1.10. And if you add up the $1.10 and the 10 cents for the ball, that's $1.20. And remember, they only cost $1.10 together. So more critical thinking of this reveals that the ball actually only cost 5 cents because the bat cost $1 more,
Yes.
which would be $1.05. Add $1.05 and 5 cents together, you have $1.10. Now, my guess is that in your mind, when I said they cost $1.10 together and the bat cost $1 more, you kind of had the figure pop into your mind that the ball was 10 cents.
Most people do.
This is the same way that people think of the stock market, Ben, because when I heard that equation, I immediately took and thought, oh, the ball must be 10 cents. And I subtracted that from what the bat would, and I got 90 cents. Okay, so, and I go, that doesn't add up. So that put me on to level two thinking. But most people don't think that you can make money in a declining stock market. They only think you can make money when the market is accelerating. So they don't do that subtraction thinking. We're always doing addition in our mind because that's the simple, most easy way, spontaneous thing to do it. We don't think it's subtracting.
You're right. That would be level 1. Addition is level 1 for most people.
It's level 1. That's where we start. And sometimes we never go beyond that, and it gets us into trouble sometimes.
Yes, and so most of you are probably wondering what John's reaction was as the numbers guy when I asked him how much the ball and the bat cost. And his reaction was, would you say that again? So I said it again, concerned that he might figure this out before he had a chance to react the way most people did. And he goes, well, would it be, wait, no, that wouldn't be right. So he never actually said 10 cents until somebody else chimed in and said 10 cents. And he goes, 10 cents? No, but that couldn't be. And so then we went directly into level 2 thinking from there. But the point is that level 1 thinking is fantastic. Without it, we could perish quickly because we can't make those split-second decisions, maybe in traffic that we need to make. We can't make split-second decisions for our family or maybe for your children, their health, or whatever. But the problem only comes when you let your level 2 thinking, which is a little bit slower and can tend to be a little bit lazy as well, if you let your level 2 thinking just immediately agree with your level 1 decisions.
And, that's what happens in way too many people. Just recently, Dave Ramsey was ranting again about how bad life insurance is and nobody that has a millionaire has it. Well, he hasn't talked to me, okay? And he hasn't talked to a lot of our clients or a lot of people that we know, or he'd find those millionaires.
Yeah.
But the thing is, and just a second, John, I'm going to let you get in here. The thing is what's happening is we're staying at level 1 thinking with Dave Ramsey.
You're right.
And that's fine. That helps a lot of people. I'm not knocking what he does. I'm just saying we need to go beyond level 2 to level 2 if we want to survive in retirement.
That's right. And you mentioned Dave Ramsey. We had a couple people write in asking us to cover this on the podcast, which we will be doing here in a future episode very quickly. So I want to give a quick shout out. Thank you to Jason and David for writing in to us about that. We will be covering that in more detail.
And speaking of that, we encourage you to write in with your questions or give us a call at 702-660-7000 or shoot us an email at team@life-benefits.com with your questions or ideas or anything that you would like us to cover in the podcast too.
You know what I like about that is that when people are asking the questions that they're thinking about it, chances are there's many other people who are thinking that same thing. And so having you write in with your questions really lets us know what's going to be useful so John and Dad can do the research and create a podcast episode around those subjects.
Well, back to level 1 thinking with Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman and that gang of people. Spontaneously, when you see that the premium payment on a whole life insurance policy is much higher than a term policy, you go, man, that's way too expensive. Bad investment. Mm-hmm. However, if we take it out and 7-8 years down the road, you have more cash liquidity in that policy than what you paid for it. How much really has your life insurance cost?
Nothing.
And yet term insurance continues to have that premium until you can't afford it anymore. Yeah. And so this is level 2 thinking. This is reasoning. This is logic. And we often see that people cannot logically draw conclusions anymore because they've become lazy. And, there's statistics that show after people graduate from high school, they never read another book in their entire life. And that's not necessarily pointing a finger at anybody. It's just saying that our learning stops sometimes after high school. And so our logical ability to draw conclusions is very restricted. And so it's important that we really get down and make level 2 support what we're already thinking in level 1 or contradict it and let us draw the conclusions that are going to make us live happily ever after.
Exactly. What you're talking about, level 1 thinking with Dave Ramsey and the likes, it's entertainment. It is not education in the most part.
I think you're right.
Yeah, and the best form of learning comes when we can combine the logical lessons that we learn with entertainment, because the reality is that it does take both types of thinking to be able to function in our world today.
And this is what happens with education, is that the more we exercise level 2 thinking, the more it becomes level 1 thinking for us.
Quicker, yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Just like level 2 tends to be a lazier type of thinking, you can get that muscle active, acclimated, and it will be much easier to use.
My name is Thomas. That means doubter. I tend to doubt
right.
everything first. So I'm always trying to think of level 2 on many, many things, even though I might not say anything, simply because I don't take things at face value very often. And that can be a good thing. It can be a bad thing. But at the same time, the more you exercise that, the more it becomes the way you just naturally respond to the universe.
Yes.
So I guess the conclusion in all this is that we need to make sure that we not only understand how something might work, but we understand the reason why it works. Does that make sense? Because if we just understand how something works and we don't understand why it works, then we could be very easily persuaded to do something else. If we understand the why behind something, for example, someone can compare a 401k to a life insurance policy, and they can say, well, look, you're going to get, this return in your 401k, but this is all you're getting in the life insurance. Why is that not a good comparison?
Yeah, well, people can see that they're saving tax money right away in the 401k, level 1 thinking.
They don't realize, though.
You also have to look at the consequences, the long-term results of that, level 2 thinking.
Right
have to take it out longer.
Right before we started the podcast, you were talking about the importance of not only saving throughout your working years, but also the ability to bring that all together when you're going to need to pay out or land the airplane, you've used the example of. And that's when they're going to discover, if they've only applied level 1 thinking, that's when they're going to discover the consequences of that if they haven't thought through that ahead of time.
And that's often what happens when we have our meetings with prospects and clients that come in and we show them level 2. Yes, you're going to save all these taxes on this money. Excuse me, you're going to defer all these taxes all these years. And several examples we've done, you might defer $50-some thousand, maybe $75,000 in taxes while you're working. But in the first 7 or 8 years of retirement, you pay it back like 3 times to the government. You think the government wasn't thinking level 2?
You bet they were.
Absolutely they were. That Uncle Sam's not stupid.
They're not going to just give you a free ride.
Yeah, they want that taxes. That's why they allowed you to defer it. They knew they were going to collect more on the back end than they ever did on your working career. And that really surprises a lot of people. Now, the other thing that can surprise a lot of people is on the back end, they don't realize that life insurance proceeds, as you use those in retirement, will not affect your income, whereas your 401k, your IRA, your municipal bonds that you were not having to pay taxes on before retirement, now all of a sudden they affect your income, and now you can lose, you can be taxed on 50% up to 85% of your Social Security. That could hurt. Those are things that are level 2 thinking that nobody maybe even knew about, but should have asked questions about, because nothing is free in this life.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And we have a video scheduled. It will be coming out probably sometime this year that shows if somebody will save or put away a chunk of money for 30 years and they earn the average investor's estimated return, which is 6%. Over those 30 years, they actually end up earning less than 1%. It's 0.85%. It's incredible that even works out, but those are the figures on it, and that's how it works.
That's a really exciting example that we're going to be doing and sharing, because it is so powerful. And this is the level 2 reasoning that Susie Orman and Dave Ramsey either don't understand or not explaining to their audience, and it's deceiving. But at the same time, there's part of me that say I can't really blame them, because people are lazy in their thoughts anymore. They don't want to think in analogies. If something works in one area of your life, if you understand why it worked, you can apply that to another area. And so if we understand that really life never gives us anything free, we won't be looking for something free in our investments either. It comes from work.
That's right.
It comes from our diligence. And if we don't look and diligently look at the long-term effects and consequences of what we're doing, then we kind of deserve what happens.
Yes, people looking to get something for nothing. I was listening to Zig Ziglar recording the other day in my truck, and Zig Ziglar was telling a story of a king who sent the word out to all his wise sages, and he says, I want you to take all of the wisdom of the ages, and I want you to compile it. And I want you to write it down so that people can read it. And they were gone for a long time. It took them many, many years. When they came back to the king, they had 12 volumes. And the king said, well, I'm sure this is the wisdom of the ages, but nobody is ever going to read 12 volumes. To get the wisdom of the ages, you need to condense it. So they went away. In a few months, they came back and they had 1 volume. And the king said, well, this is better, but nobody's even going to read 1 volume. You need to condense it. And so they came back with a chapter. And the king sent them away again. They came back with a paragraph. The king sent them away again. And finally, they came back with 1 sentence. And the 1 sentence says, there is no free lunch.
Yeah, that's interesting. You were talking about how versus the why. At level 1 thinking, it's easy to see some of the ingredients that go in to somebody's success, whether that be financial success, whether it be family success, whatever it is in life. It's easy to see some of the superficial how elements.
Yes.
Level 1 thinking. What's underneath the surface? Level 2 thinking, the why behind it. Some of the how principles that you didn't see just on the surface, that could be likened to the level 2 thinking. And if you don't start with that foundation at the level 2 thinking, then whatever happens at level 1, it can be very temporal. It could be there, it might not be there. You could apply some of those things for a while, but unless you have the foundation, it's not the long-term stability that you're looking for.
That's so
if you
true,
do start
John.
with the foundation.
That's so true, John. And
you do have what you're looking for long-term, and that's what we want you to think about here as you're listening to this podcast today.
Even the fact that, when you listen to certain people that say, well, if you could make 12% in the market, this is what you would have in 30 years if you put away X every year. Okay? So if I'm putting $6,500 away every year and I'm earning 12%, then I'm going to have several $1 million, in 30, 35 years down the road. However, when they say, and what if you were only earning half that, like 6%? People immediately jump to the conclusion that they're going to have half the millions of dollars. They're not. They're going to have like maybe a third or less.
Because of the exponential growth.
Or less. And then they not thinking about the fees that it's going to cost to manage that. And so they're going to drop it down even more. And that's why when we're talking about this example that we're going to film, the 1% earnings on a 6% rate of return is what really happens. And it's very dramatic, and it's very, very serious when you reach the point in your life when you're expecting to have millions of dollars or a large sum of money that you're going to depend on, and it's not really there. That's why we're encouraging people to think at level 2. So until next time, when we're going to talk about more solutions, money, and things that create wealth in your life, have a great week. We'll be back here next week.